Welcome to our DHS Technical Assistance webinar for the EPIC program. I'm glad to see everybody on the call today. If you logged in as a team, if you've got more than one person in the room with you on your call, please put in the names of the people who are in the room with you so that I know who's actually getting this information firsthand and who is watching it on a recording. And then please remember to check in. If you have any questions about anything going on, we will check those boxes and we'll go down the agenda there by the way that it falls out in the dashboard. I've got on the call with me Natasha and Olivia, and you may have been seeing some messages or phone calls from them. So just to let you know that we've got this going on here. Okay, so let's get started with what we want to do. I want to talk about a couple of things that have to do with the invitation. So first thing that we need to do is make sure that you are using the right Social Security number. And after having a conversation with Mr. McMorris in Region 1, he indicated that on the DHS screens, there is a Social Security number on the first screen and a Social Security number on the third screen. So what you need to be doing is using the Social Security on the third screen, because if a client gets entered and you've used the wrong Social Security number, we end up with two accounts for that client, and then they can't really move anywhere because the system is confused with what's going on and who the person is, because there's the same name and but different Social Security numbers for that same person. So that's the one issue that we need to make sure that everybody is paying very close attention to. And now we have been talking with the CBOs about doing reverse referrals. So what I want to do right now is I want to pull over a poll question for you to help me answer, what is it that when somebody walks into your office from a CBO that has been referred to you from the CBO, what would you like to see in your office at the front desk from that customer that's walking in that's been referred to you to start through the application process? And obviously, if you logged in as a team, we need you to just give us one answer. All right. And based on who's answering, we can tell who's giving us those answers, so then we can pretty much work through this process. That's okay, Chris. Wow, you got a whole crowd in the room there in Winnebago. Are you sitting on each other's laps? All right. Okay, so that's good there. I think everybody has had a chance to answer. So let's move that poll out.
But real quick, so it looks like 7 people say send the 2151, 4 people say no. I guess should we look at it, and we could probably look at just by who answered the questions. Is it more of a regional thing?
Yeah, it looks like it. From the answers that I'm seeing of who answered, it's definitely regional. And it's based on whether they're mandatory or not. So I think that makes a big difference, the size of the office and whether they're mandatory or not. So what we've done, if you want someone to use the 2151, what we have done in the restricted resources on EPIC is included a blank 2151 form that the CBOs can use so that they can fill it out with at least name and address information, and then once they get to the DHS office, they can look up the case IDs and all those sorts of things. That's a good point, Chris. The volume of the office makes a big difference about who's going to be able to see what. All right. Now, the other thing that I've observed is that the 1721 that you all send out to your office. Now, let me know by a show of hands who includes the length of time on the 1721 for how long they're going to anticipate being at the appointment. All right, so it looks like a big chunk of people are. It's advisable to everyone that if you are not already including the length of time, you may want to include that on the 1721 message that goes out, because of the fact that if somebody thinks they're only going to be there for an hour and it ends up being 3, even though it is only the one day now, they may have some sort of commitment that they have to be at. Even though we're trying to help them get a new job or a new career pathway, you do need to plan for that and help them plan for that, because then they may call to reschedule if they don't have that time. All right, great. Next thing that we need to talk about is the intake dashboard. And what I want to show everybody, and this is something that Olivia and I and Deidre Wesley are currently working on, trying to make sure that it matches. And on the SNAP, on the EPIS dashboard, we have numbers that we can track what's going on in all of the regions. And if you look at the very bottom, let me make this a little bit bigger. If you look at the very bottom, we have 213 people across the state that have been assigned to treatment and 215 people who have been assigned across the state to control. So what I want to do now is I want to show you on our current intake dashboard. So that's 400 and, help me with my math, 428 people who have been assigned to treatment or control. And right here on our dashboard, let me make this a little bit bigger for you, we only are showing 422 people. So that means we're off by 6 people. And the reason that we're off by 6 people is because somebody along the way is getting stuck in one of these other areas up here. So what's very critical for us to be able to make sure that this system flows properly, because we're looking at a total of 5,000 people, it's going to be really difficult down the road to find that missing link. So what I need you guys to all do is to make sure that the RIN numbers are there, the DHS ID numbers are there and correct, and that the Social Security numbers are there and correct. All of the items preceding random assignment have to be correct for the person to move through the dashboard. So that means that, let me go to a test person here. So that means that in this profile on the eligibility review, these boxes have to be checked. The status here has to be checked. Are they eligible to move forward? Are they eligible for SNAP? Has the model been checked? Has a location been selected as a precursor to them actually going through the random assignment? So these are all important pieces that have to be done before the person will move through the dashboard, and that we can keep those numbers in sync. And that's the important piece, is keeping them in sync. Now, we understand that there's going to be the occasional item that just happens, but those should be few and far between. So when we're looking at these, whoops, what happened? Oh, goodness, do I need to go back? All right, let's make this bigger. Sorry. I just figured out, or somebody just figured out what was going on. All right, let me go back. So these are the 418 on here, and I can see by local workforce areas who's been assigned. And we know which workforce areas are assigned to the region. So we can tell who's been assigned where. And when we look on the intake dashboard, that 428 people do not match this 422 number here. We're off by 6. So that's what I'm saying. The people that we work with move through this dashboard and come down the number. So out of here, we've got 212 people that have been assigned to EPIC, and we've got 212 people in this number right here. So these numbers all roll from one section of the dashboard to the next. And then when we go to the enrolled dashboard, that 212 number also shows up here. So we had 210 people that were moving forward, 2 people declined. So all of these totals of all of these numbers add up to this 210. So that's how the dashboard can help us keep track. So if there's somebody stuck up in a different area, they're not going to move through the dashboard. So that's why the eligibility review piece has to be completed. If somebody is not recommended for any programs, don't take them through to EPIS. If they aren't recommended for any programs, take a look at their, under the view baseline requirements, view what the non-recommended programs are and see why they're not recommended. If somebody's background check is eliminating them from any of the programs, then you need to have a discussion with them. Did they fill out the application properly? Once you have randomly assigned somebody, you cannot change their application. But before you randomly assign them, you can go back and have a discussion with them. Did you understand that question correctly? Do you really have your name listed on the sexual offender registry? Or did you just answer that by just going through the application because you have to? So these are all things that have to happen before these people will move accurately through the dashboard. All right. Before I move on, do we have any questions about that? I see a couple people typing. In Region 3, if they check they have a felony, they are not recommended for any program, but some of the career choices do allow felons. Vicki, I am trying to have a conversation with your CBO, and I have not been able to get through to them. So I am working on that for you. And Marquis says, I logged in about 8 minutes late. Did you go over the different models under eligibility status on the eligibility review page? No, we did not. We can do that. We can talk about that if you would like. So on the different models, and
also just as a side note, we do have a conversation with Commerce on Monday to even further clarify those models. So we'll make sure we cover that on Friday, a week from today. So you can talk about it now, just with what our existing models are, but just know that we'll provide further clarification on those next Friday.
And what we may be able to do is, could we potentially put one of those little info buttons on there that they can click on and have a more in-depth?
Yeah, and probably I'll just put a link to the document that describes, or you can put the info bubbles there, but we'll put a link to the document that describes it fully.
All right, so we may be able to get those info bubbles up before the Friday meeting. So if you're in there, check around, look and see if that info bubble is there. We have similar issue with the felony convictions as well in Region 5. All right, so maybe we need to have that discussion on Wednesday with all of the CBOs about have they checked with their employers or are they anticipating that. All right, does that, we'll have that conversation, and that may help everybody a little bit more, because we do need to try to deal with felony convictions, because those are the people that have one of the hardest times of being able to get back into the workplace. Okay. Any other questions before I move on to the next area? I see Leslie typing. Also, can you ask them about bridge programs? We have one provider who was agreeable when asked. What do you mean, adding bridge programs to their training? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
if they offer a bridge program, they just need, if you want to tell us who it is, and we can follow up directly with them to make sure that they update their training program information.
So just send us a message. Well, you've only got 3 providers. Just send us a message to epic@illinoisworknet.com, and then I will follow up on that. Okay, so next on our agenda is intake activities. One of the things that I've noticed, and it will help us with moving people forward after we get the initial crush of people out of the way, on the intake dashboard on a particular customer. So I'm looking at AEEA tester, and I go to his intake activities. Oh, I need to go to somebody that hasn't. Excuse me one moment. Let me get into a new person. All right, I'm going to go to Deborah. She was scheduled for intake. Winnebago, we'll get to that one in a minute. Is that okay? She is scheduled for an intake appointment on 6/15/2016. Did this person actually attend their orientation? I noticed that there's a follow-up date down here. Did that person actually attend their follow-up appointment? Now with the one-day meetings, I've noticed that maybe somebody just runs out of time, or maybe somebody didn't have all the correct information, so they want to come back. They ask you to come back to fill out the application. So you're going to still be able to schedule them for a follow-up appointment, but do they show up? So what happens here is if they do not show up for the orientation, you need to click here that they didn't attend, or did they decline to participate here, or they attended orientation but they don't want to participate. Well, what happens when you click that one is that they're interested in the training program, but they can't participate in training right now. They want to come back at a later date. Well, you can reinvite those people. So those are not lost completely. They're just lost for right now. So there's somebody that we can follow up with and reinvite them down the road. They're interested in training and can participate now, but need to reschedule another date and time to complete the application process. That's the person that maybe didn't get the time put on their 1721, so they need to come back because you said it was going to be an hour, but it's really 3. So that's why it's important that that 1721 needs to include the time parameter that you anticipate that customer will be in your office. I'm not interested in the particular types of training offered. Well, now if we end up getting any new training programs, that might be a potential client down the road. Or I'm not interested in training of any kind. That's somebody that we just write off. Then they have to worry about what's going to happen when everybody becomes mandatory. Down here, we have customer did not attend consent meeting. That helps us when we're trying to get those reports to make sure that people are syncing properly and keeping our dashboards in line with the EPIS system. So if they're not going to show up, then you just click those things and save. Then their eligibility review and their assignment don't come out right. All right, so. Okay, so now let's move on to the next item on our dashboard. So what I would like to know is there are several areas, let's see, we have a question. So you want us to mark everyone that didn't show that they declined to participate? No, I want you to mark them as they didn't show. If they don't show up for orientation, they'll just fall into a different area. If they didn't show up for their follow-up appointment, those people need to be marked. Does that make sense now, Williamson? If they miss their date for orientation, they will fall into a different category on the dashboard automatically based on the date. We're pulling that out. The program pulls that out. Okay, so there's several areas in the dashboard. Yes. Is this defaulted to did not attend orientation? Yes, because if they don't have an application, that moves them to, so this person doesn't have an application in here, so that moves them to did not attend orientation. If they have an application, if they actually complete the application, then they will be moved into the dashboard. Let me get to the dashboard. They will be moved into the dashboard that says right down here, application not started, incomplete application in 24 hours if there's something missing. Correct. Yes. If there's nothing to mark, if they completed step 4 but didn't stay for random assignment, then you need to schedule a follow-up appointment for them to complete the random assignment, unless they're declining to participate. Is that good, Williamson County? Okay. And Leslie, are you typing something for us? All right. Will you go over how to change the date for a second orientation? Sure. Let me go back to that customer. So in here, if the person missed the orientation, you can just, and it's only one person. Now this is only good if you got 1 or 2 people. You can go in here and I can just click in the box and give them a new orientation date. So maybe they told you, oh, I've got to have surgery and I'm going to be out of commission for about 6 weeks because I broke my leg and they've got to put a pin in it and I can't be on my feet, blah, 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 blah. So you reschedule them for August 10th. You can do that here. Or if you've got a group of people that you want to re-invite, you can go to the line item here. Let me make this bigger. You can go to the line item in your dashboard where it says missed orientation and click on that number. Now, this number is a statewide training number that we've got in here. So what I can do is I can go in here and I can re-invite all of these customers. The other thing that you can do is under the advanced search, you can do, maybe it was orientation originally scheduled for March 1 through April 1. And I look for those people. I search for those people. I don't have any because I re-invited everybody. But then you can re-invite them by a month time period, a 2-week time period, whatever. So then you can go back and re-invite all those people all at one time. Does that answer your question, Leslie? All right. Yes, I will try again. I did that last week. Yep. Okay. Let us know, Leslie, let us know if there's an issue, and you and I can get on a screen share and we'll work through it together. And then Marquise is asking, is it possible to get a checkbox on the left so that we can select which customers are included when selecting re-invite all? We can check into that, Marquise. The parameters up here for the orientation status, orientation start date or orientation end date, right now is what we can use right now, or you can use any of these other parameters. But I would say invite them like 2 weeks at a time or a week at a time for right now. But we will make a note to see if we can get a checkbox. I understand. Or even to be able to invite them by alpha. You can always put in an A up here or an AB or something so that you can do some different kind of groups of sorting. Okay. Olivia or Natasha, did you get that note down just in case? Okay. What we want to do now is, let me go back to my list. Who in your office is responsible for following up on the dashboard items where we need to make sure that we are following up with people? And what I want to talk about is the missed orientation is one of those areas where you can go back and re-invite people. We've got also areas attended, not going to apply, but requested a later date. So attended, not going to apply, I've got 4 people in here. So what you can do is you can go in. That number's probably going to be pretty small, especially because this is like our test and it's a statewide number. So that number is 4. Go back in there and check every once in a while to find out what those people said, and if they said not at this moment or not right now or have to come back, get in there and re-invite them. The other thing that we need to look at is incomplete application in 24 hours. What happened with that? Or incomplete application older than 24 hours. Who's checking on these numbers? Raise your hand if you're the one in your office checking those numbers. All right, so I'm thinking that's Chris. All right, so it looks like it's probably some LOAs maybe or some HSMs that are checking those numbers. All right. So if you're having issues with what these numbers represent, please send me an email or send an email to epic@illinoisworknet.com so that we can keep track of how they're moving through the dashboard. Another thing is ready for review by DHS caseworker. Those numbers, and let me go live here for a second to production. This is at a statewide level there, and I'm in the wrong dashboard, so let me get into the intake dashboard. Across the state, we have 3,200 people that missed orientation. That's a big number that we can get back through our doors if we need to. Attended not going to apply, 308 people that we could potentially get back through our doors. We've got 5 people that an incomplete application after 24 hours. Why? What's going on with that? Customer profile information needs finished. That's a DHS ID or a RIN ID. Those numbers need to be filled in there so that we can get these people moving through the dashboard. The other area, ready for review by a DHS caseworker. There's 31 people in here that need to be reviewed before you can do the random assignment. So we need to make sure that those things are being done so that we've got those people moving through. Natasha, there's a question that I don't know the answer to. Does the number include the sanctioned customers too?
For the...
Which number were you looking at, Winnebago, when I was talking about it? The 3,200 number? The ready to re-invite? No, those were just people that were invited that just didn't show up.
Well, you know, at some point in time, I guess they could be sanctioned if you're in a location where you sent them the request to come and they never showed up and they've gone through the conciliation process and they've never shown up, and it could potentially include the sanctioned people.
But it's not that we've marked them as sanctioned.
No, it's not because we've marked them. It's just they were invited beforehand.
Right, and Williamson invites beforehand, so you would know. This number is people that showed up. Now, they could also include people that, like in Chicago, got invited and decided to go on to JPP or go on to EarnFair or whatever program they've got there. So that number is probably a big chunk of Chicago people that decided they didn't want to use EPIC. But they could always be asked again, and especially before the end of the year. Another couple of areas that we need to keep track of is I don't see it on here, did not attend, missed consent meeting. There it is. Missed consent meeting. Those are people that got rescheduled for some reason or another that just didn't show back up. Many of these people in this 43 across the state number are those people who maybe were scheduled for their NOCD, but now that we're not doing the NOCD, maybe they'll come back and complete the process to be randomly assigned. So get in there and check that number too. And last but not least on my list is not assigned to CBO. Right now, I've only got 2 people that weren't assigned to the CBO, but if I fix a couple of these other numbers, there will be a bigger number there. So one of the things that we need to talk about is you need to check that number by your region on a probably daily basis. If you've just had an orientation process through your office, you need to be checking that number because those are people probably that either there was not an appointment available by the CBO or there was an issue with that particular customer, and that person got fixed, and so now they need to be assigned to a CBO. So we need to keep an eye on that number as well. All right, any items about the intake dashboard or intake activities? All right, I'm not seeing anybody typing right now, so I'm going to move on to orientation tools. One of the things that I am working on doing right now, whoops, got to the wrong place, is while I was in the office the other day, I noticed that people go through the step 2 and 3 and the application at different paces. So what I discovered was doing a group viewing of the informed consent recordings don't really work so well. I asked a question earlier about being able to see multiple orientation dates. Let me find that. Is there a way to see multiple orientation dates for those who have been sent a second invite? Natasha, I don't think there is a way right now. We could always, you could always add it as a case note.
Yeah, it's like, I can't remember. Does it make a case note? I just can't remember.
I don't think it automatically makes a case note. Maybe is that something that we could program in there eventually? Or
I assume they could put just a case note in there. Let's have a note on to have them case note upon invitation. I know there's a history of it, so yeah, we'll just make a note to ask to add it as a case note.
To automatically add it as a case note if they re-invite. Good suggestion, Leslie. All right. Okay, so back to the orientation tools. People finish their process at different rates of time. So what I would like for everybody to do, and for those of you who are doing your orientation in an LWIA office, if you need me to talk to those people, I will do that. But what we would like to do is download a version of the informed consent, let me make this bigger, to the desktop so that you don't have to go to YouTube, so that you don't have to log in on that laptop. We're going to put the tool in the restricted resources. We're working on getting it uploaded today, so check back hopefully this afternoon, if not by Monday morning. I will have these MP4s available so that you can download it to each laptop. And so basically what you would do is you would download the MP4, put it on a jump drive, take that jump drive from laptop to laptop or desktop to desktop, and just download it to the desktop so that you can go to that desktop and click the video for the person to watch with their earbuds. And I will put directions with this so that you can see exactly how to do it, because I know a couple of you are probably cringing right now because I've told you to do something technical. But we will help you through this process. Okay. Next on our list, on my list, is eligibility. And we talked about a couple of things already. What I want to do is go back to a test person. One of the things that I saw in the profile was that the eligibility had not been completed, which means nowadays, now with the new second application, only the caseworker has to approve it. If somebody's coming to you at a later point in time to complete the process, you'll still see these checkboxes, but we only have to do one person. So even if they have all three of these people there, it only has to be the DHS case person. please, 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 if there's no items recommended for the customer, have a conversation with them, and if they still don't have any programs that are recommended for them, don't take them through the EPIS process. We've got on here, and I don't have rights with the training person to do the DHS work, but on here under the eligibility status, you will mark them as yes, as of this moment, they are eligible for SNAP and that they are not receiving TANF benefits. So Williamson, is there a different question than what I just discussed?
And if you need to, the info at train 26, I believe, has it.
All right, so let me just log out and log back in. Okay, so the question is about eligibility status. What is our time frame on updating that for the core and EPIC customers in the study in the dashboard? I'm thinking that you're asking me about people that are already in the program. Because the new ones you would be checking right now. All right, let me get there in a minute, okay? So on here, you will check a program. You will check an eligibility status so that here is where you would say, if there's no programs for that person to participate in, you would click here that customer declined to participate. If they are eligible and not receiving TANF, you would click here, and then you would say here, SNAP recipient is not SNAP eligible because they are either not SNAP eligible or they are receiving TANF.
And we added this option here because we've had several people that have gone through this process and all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, you're not SNAP eligible. And so, you know, the whole idea is just to have one more check just to make sure everybody's, you know, verify everybody's SNAP eligible prior to getting put into EPIS.
All right. I know I was on the phone. Marquise just asked another question. We did not discuss this already. Has anybody else been having problems getting into EPIS? I know I had an issue Tuesday night, but it was late at night, so it was like 11 o'clock at night. I was working on some numbers. Just set to the wrong wheel. All right, send us a message at epic@illinoisworknet.com and we'll get that fixed. Williamson. Okay, moving on. Eligibility had not been completed. Another person that I noticed was they had the eligibility status checked and they had the model checked, but they hadn't checked what training program. That kept the person from moving through the dashboard. So please make sure that you check all three of these items and then hit save so that the people will move through the dashboard properly.
And the reason why we have these pre-random assignment questions, at least the model and the training provider question, is because they want to be able to try to capture that for people. They want to, for people, to be able to capture and get an idea of, what training programs you're going to go into, because we know what they're going to go into for the treatment group, but we don't know what they're going to go into, what they would have ever gone into if they are in the control group, because they're not actually assigned. So that's the reason why we ask these questions here, is so we have that information for both the treatment and the control group. Because at this point in time, they haven't done random assignment, so, we don't know where they're going to be assigned. So it's it is important for the study purpose.
And it's different if there's only one CBO in your area. It's kind of hard to gauge who they're going to pick if you're like Cook and you've got 17. So make your best guess. The next thing was, this was another issue that came up. WorkNet ID was wrong. You cannot have a leading space or a trailing space on the WorkNet ID. Since it's only a 6-digit number, it might be best if you click into that other participant ID space in the EPIS application and just type the number. Okay. So what we need to be sure is that that's how we pull information back in to EPIC from EPIS. We match by the other participant ID, or what we're calling the WorkNet ID. So please make sure that that number is correct. And then it looks like that section is complete for me. And assignment syncing, this is going back to what I was just talking about. The WorkNet IDs have to be correct. That's how we capture the data from EPIS to make sure that we're syncing with them, that our numbers are matching.
And just to kind of help you understand that part of it, is that one of the things that we do in WorkNet is we can, if we're getting information from EPIS, we have control over, having the ability to strip out any extra spaces and all that kind of good stuff to make a match. Whenever we send the information back to EPIS that says, hey, we have a person with, WorkNet ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, do you have a person there with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? If they already have, if they have space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, their system doesn't strip out those extra spaces. So in their system, the way they recognize it is space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, space, 4, 5, 6, anything like that. Their system recognizes those spaces. And so when we try to make an exact match, we're not able to do that. So that's why the space thing is really important for the WorkNet ID. On our side, we have control of being able to strip those out, but we don't have control over their system, and that's how it's set up currently. So it's really important not to have spaces in the WorkNet ID because it's an exact match.
And then do you want to tell them about the active record?
I think people that have had to deal with it probably know. There's been some instances where, maybe a person has started a form and either, there's an internet connectivity problem or something timed out, and, they had to get back in and create a new form in EPIS, and then there were 2 accounts hanging out there with, both of them with WorkNet IDs, and our system was like, wait a minute, which one do you want me to use? And so if that happens to you where you have 2 EPIS records out there with the same WorkNet ID, as long as one of them is marked as inactive or closed, then the EPIC system will pick up on the active account.
So if somebody can't stay through the whole survey and they have to leave or something happens, you need to go back in and close that case before you start the new one. Does that make sense to everybody? Raise your hand if it does.
Or I guess if they come back, they could just finish filling that one out. The problem is when you have multiple accounts, multiple when they
Right.
fill, because you can search for a person, right, and finish filling it out.
Yes, you can.
It's whenever you get to caught in like that limbo stage. Like the examples I've heard of is, maybe there was an internet connectivity problem and they got kicked out or something like that. I don't know. And then you've got a record that's kind of out there in limbo that you can't make any changes to, that type of thing.
Right. Okay. We had a question from the audience, and then I'm going to get to the last question. We had a question from you guys, and it's about transportation. We just had a conversation with the CBOs. They have a limit of $500 for, is it transportation or all supportive services for a customer? So my question to you all is, do you give your clients a bus pass or something to get to the initial CBO appointment? Because the CBO hasn't been assigned or hasn't actually enrolled the person yet, so they don't get that person. Okay, so Winnebago doesn't have bus passes. Casey, I don't know where you're from. Jefferson County doesn't. Not in Region 4. 6 transit cards in Cook. It would be good. All right, so we need to, Deidre, can you check with DHS and find out if we can get some of those initial transit cards to some of the other workforce areas? Money to their link card. Venture card, okay. All right. So, Deidre, you're on the call, but can you, okay, thank you. All right. And last but not least, 2151A. And I know Winnebago asked that question, and she asked about, are they supposed to be issuing 2151As? And on the enrolled dashboard, we can track who's behind on 2151As. So right here, we've got 2151As are up to date. CBO needs to upload 2151A. What we have told the CBOs are that they need to, when they take in a customer initially, they have to submit a 21, and this is per Alan Sumner, they have to issue a 2151 to let you guys know that they attended their appointment. They have to issue a 2151A to tell you what their activity is going to be. So if this customer is taken in today, July 15th, they have to issue a 2151A that will tell you what is going to be happening from the 18th to the 29th of July. Then between July 1 and August 1 and August 5, they will issue a 2151A to say what that customer actually did. And then on September 1 through September 5, they will issue a 2151A that said what they did for July. So that when you do your, I'm not quite sure what it is, but checking to make sure that the customer's done what they're supposed to be doing to maintain their mandatory, then you can go in and check that person's file. So Winnebago. Did that answer your question? And you can check the dashboard here to see if they're behind or not. And I know I had a conversation with Pamela and Daryl to show them how to do. Yeah, they were having issues. They were having issues getting those uploaded, so I'll double check with them to make sure that they're. You should be getting a case note that those have been uploaded. It should be an automatic case note that goes to the primary contact. So what we need to make sure is on your customers that, and let me show you where you can do that, on a person's, oh goodness, on a person's profile under the assignment, it says right here who the DHS contact is. So if you're clicking and checking who the DHS contact is, that's the person that's getting the message in WorkNet. And I'm going to go back to production here. So that should come to you in your emails, and it should all, as long as, yes, those should be automatic email and Illinois WorkNet message. Are they, Natasha? Those notifications?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're not seeing them in the email, you need to check your spam folder and move messages from Illinois WorkNet to your approved sender list. But you can also check in your Illinois WorkNet messages because, oh goodness. I don't know why that just logged me out.
They might have made an update to.
Oh, yes, that's possible. So let me get logged back in. So then on your messages, it shows you if you're logged in and you go to your personal Illinois WorkNet logged in, click on messages, you will see the messages that have been addressed to you as the primary DHS contact or any of the messages that we have sent out as super admins. And that would be me, Olivia, Natasha, I believe Deidre is a super admin. So all of these people here, this is where you're also going to see those messages. So that's where you want to check. All right. All right, I think that's it for my list. Sorry that this took so long, but we covered a whole lot of ground. So if you were late, I'm going to move my screen share down. If you were late, please check in by your region. And are there any other questions that I need to answer, or Natasha needs to answer for you, or Olivia needs to answer for you? And what we will do is we're going to send out a message to everybody with the high points from this so that if somebody didn't get to be here and watch, what you are able to do is go to your EPIC dashboard, your EPIC partner resources, and watch the video. We'll get that posted maybe later today, but probably by Monday for sure. All right, any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Thanks for having us in your computer today. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.